All right. Good morning to you. It's man, it's middle of the week. I think is where we are, and things should be good. Man, last night I went to watch some basketball. Three games. My uh, JV grandson played their game. Then we watched the girls play, and then my varsity grandson played the last game and we won them all. But man, it was great. Great fun. Brent, my son-in-law, his parents are in town from Maine, and so man, it was a good time just hanging out with them. If they lived here, we'd be good friends. They're just good people, and man, I love spending time with them. And so it was a good night last night, and looking forward to that, or enjoyed that. Looking forward to tonight. I'm going to hang out with some of my better men guys, and so we're going to chat. We're going to talk about fitness in the sense of mental and emotional and physical as well, and just deal with some anxiety issues and just talk about how to set goals in that area. And I'm truly excited about that. So lots of good things are going on in my world that just drive me, and I totally enjoy all of those things. And so we'll see what happens. I think I got the girls from Peachtree City coming in this weekend, so gonna hang out with them and just enjoy what I can with them as well. So that's my little wrap up of what's going on. Hope everything's good in your world. And let's just jump into some truth this morning. And man, we're in chapter 10, and we're working our way through sheep and shepherds. And really, it's just, I hope you find it fascinating like I do, because it's just rich. I love word pictures. Jesus here calls it a figure of speech. He's giving them a figure of speech. And so he's speaking to them in their language. No doubt, in that area in which he's speaking, there would be sheepfolds, right? And we know a fold isn't the animal in the sheep. That's a herd. The fold is the container of where they stay. If they're not out in the fields, and so that means it's just a courtyard that's open air that has a wall. Could be a wooden fence, could be a stone wall, whatever it is, and it's not just for people. So you have a sheepfold. That's why it's called a sheepfold, right? But you also have folds for other things as well. You would have that for entertaining guests. It's considered a courtyard at that point, but it's still, from an architectural standpoint, it is a fold. That's what that is. And so he speaks of a lot of things here. I kind of want to review, and then we're just going to read through 11 through 21 today, and kind of get through that passage, and then we're gonna Jesus is gonna face some more troubles. So not that he's always in it, right? Now, so let's just remind ourselves of some things. Everything has come about because Jesus healed a blind man on the Sabbath. Now, this is not the first confrontation, but this is a lengthy section of Scripture that we're in. From 8, 9, and 10 is all flows out of Jesus healing a man on the Sabbath, the blind man. And so there's hostility that is brewing, and it has been brewing from the very beginning when he first entered and turned over the money tables in the temple. And so from that point on, there's just been great concern because there's a new entity moving into their territory. You know, the Pharisees are very territorial, much like a gang or a thug group or whatever you would want, a mafia. And so if you've got somebody moving into their turf, they're going to push them out, do away with them, all of that. So whatever, it's just that's the way it is. So Jesus and the Jews, though, are at an impasse at this point. 3 times they've tried to harm or arrest with the intent to kill him. Some that picked up stones are going to do it again. They have sought to arrest him. They even sent people to arrest him. And the guys came back, oh man, we were going to, but nobody's ever spoken like that before, right? And so this is kind of where it is. So we've looked at some bottom line truths as we see through the illustration of sheep and shepherds and false shepherds and wolves and thieves and robbers and all of that and the fold. We've learned a few things, and so I just want us to kind of be reminded of that. Here, Jesus says one of the great I ams. In this one, he says in verse 11, I am the good shepherd. I am the shepherd, the good one, which is really how it's the force of it, which I like the way the original Greek reads and how they rearrange the words in order of somewhat of for strong understanding and effect. And so he's not just the good shepherd. I am the shepherd, the good one. All right, so that lets you know there's a contrast that he's speaking of. Now, what we also know is he has his own sheep, right? Every shepherd was given a handful of sheep, right? and they knew them by name, and they cared for them, and their whole goal was to keep them safe for the ruler, the one who owned them. And so they were to feed them, they were to care for them, they were to make sure they stayed healthy, they were to keep the wolves off, the thieves away, all of that. And Jesus is saying, that's who I am. My Father has given me a set of sheep, and I know them all. And no one, he'll say later, can pluck them out of my hand, right? So let's just get this picture, because this is salvation that we're talking about. Jesus has those in this world that will come to know him and will be a part of his community, his sheep, right? Lord willing, that's where you are. That's where I am. I have heard his voice. I have followed him out, and he is now the good shepherd of my soul, right? And so this is what's going on. He knows them all by name. Every shepherd would know. They would name them. Just like you name your pets, they name their sheep. And so they are... They're known intimately. They all be given nicknames, whatever it could be. One of them, his eye twitches, so he calls him Blinky or whatever. Whatever those things are. I'm being silly now, but that's what's going on. And so he knows them all by name. He calls them, and because there's a relationship and a trust that has been developed, those sheep hear his voice and they follow him, just like your animals. You can call your dog or your sometimes your cat, right? We used to have cats, and they would come, and there's an intimacy there. You name them, and they know that, and they come, and there's it's just that's the way it is. So he calls him by name. They know him, and they follow him. And so this is the good shepherd, and this is don't miss the emphasis here. You and me are in a fold called the world, and Jesus has come to the door. He is the door in that sense. And when they say door, it doesn't mean like a wooden door, but he is the entrance in and out. That shepherd, before he put his sheep in the fold or brought them out, would stand at the door, and each one would pass by, and he would kind of check on them and make sure they were good, and they would go on their way. And so we have been a part of the world, and he is calling out his sheep because he's going to separate us in some sense, and not to mix metaphors, but the sheep and the goats, right? He's going to separate his sheep from other. And so he calls us, we hear him, he knows our name, we know who he is, and we follow him. Now, he's going to tell us that he has sheep in this fold. He's told us that. He's going to tell us in this passage we're getting ready to look at. He says, I have other flock that are not in this fold, but are in another fold. And so what we know by this is he is speaking to the house of Israel right now. So he is in the Jewish fold, right? He's speaking to the Jewish people gathered on this planet in that area where he is now. But he says, but I have other sheep, and I'm going to gather them too. Well, where are they? Well, they're outside of the house of Israel. That would be that they are Gentiles. They're on the outside of that. So he has a Gentile fold too. That's good news for you and me, because he is going to take us and mesh us into one herd. We would call that the church. We would call that the ecclesia, the called out ones, right? And so that's what's going on. This is rich when you start thinking about it and bringing everything in. And you see us as under the divine care of the good shepherd, who has awakened us, called us, brought us out, cared for us, checked on us, met our needs, and taking us to good pasture. Now, there are false shepherds also, and this is what we've been looking at. I'm trying to just get us to see the whole big picture because this is our last kind of glance at the sheep and shepherd thing, really. These false shepherds, self-appointed. That's what the Old Testament speaks of. I didn't call you to be shepherds, but you chose to be one. They're false shepherds. These Pharisees are false shepherds. They're not stewards. They're not in any way. They're false shepherds. They're thieves. They're robbers, right? They're stealing sheep, and they're also extorting the sheep that they've stolen, right? They're robbing. In open daylight, they're just taking them, and they're taking from them, and they're taking from everybody. And to not, again, to mix metaphors, but they're also wolves in sheep's clothing, So they have come in and entered in there like one. And this is what's going on. Now, Jesus says, I am the door and I am the shepherd, the good one. So he wants us to know he is the way and he is the life, right? And he's giving them truth. So when he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, what he's saying is, I am the door. If you want to, anyone who wants to come to the Father must come through me. All right? There's only one way, only one way. And Jesus is saying in this illustration of sheep and shepherds, I'm that way. The second thing he's saying is, I'm the good shepherd. You don't, listen, a good shepherd, and he's going to tell us what those good shepherds do in a minute. I'm going to lay down my life for you. And I'm going to care for you. And I'm going to beat the wolves off of you. And I'm going to keep them at bay. And not one will lose, will be lost, right? And this is powerful. All that the Father gives me come. And all that the Father has, I will care for. This is what's going on here. So today, these Jews were blind shepherds. They were hired hands. They're there for one thing, money and power. That's it. They don't love the people of Israel. In fact, the people of Israel kind of disgust them. They are much like our politicians today. They see themselves as elite and above us, right? And so they've profited off of us. Speaking of politicians now, they have stolen dollars from us through taxes and every means they can try and find it. And then they just openly abuse us and treat us like we're nothing. And they see themselves as everything. Those politicians don't care and love for us. They love our money. They love what we can do for them. They love to have somebody to control, but they don't work for us. We know that. This is what was going on with the Pharisees and the Jews, what he calls the Jews, John does, leaders. Same thing. So they don't care. They're all in it for the money and for the power. They're hired hands. They're incapable of leading because they're blind. Jesus says, you search the scriptures because you think in them you're going to find life. But it's I who have that life. And you claim to lead, but you're blind guides. This is what he's called them already in this text. I mean, in this section of John, right? They're liars. They're wolves. They just want to attack and consume all of the carcass of everything that you and I possess. They're thieves, they're robbers, they're self-preservationists. They're not in it for the fight. Somebody bigger than them comes along, they're not going to lay their life down for the sheep. They're better than the sheep. And they're strangers. Jesus says, did you call them, but they don't know. Why did the blind man, what happened to him? Jesus called him and he heard. He wasn't listening, hasn't been paying attention to the Pharisees, trying to hide out from the Pharisees because he knows their danger. His whole family was hiding out because they knew that if they got caught in some way that was wrong, they were going to lose everything. So this is what was going on. Now, Jesus says, the I am. That's a tetragrammaton. That's the word God used when they said, who Moses said, who are you? And he said, you tell them I am sent you. It's the powerful name of God, Yahweh. That's what that is. And so Jesus is saying, I am, right? What's he saying? I am God. I am. I am the door. I am the way. I am the life. I am the light. I am the shepherd, the good one. He's already said that he is greater than Moses. He said that in chapter 5, that they understood that. You're saying you're better than Moses? He says, I'm greater than Abraham. Well, you didn't even know Abraham. Before Abraham was, I am. I'm greater than Abraham. Now he's saying in a loose sense, I'm greater than David. David was the good shepherd. They knew David was the greatest shepherd that Israel had ever had in their mind. Not just the shepherd boy, but the shepherd in the sense that he loved and cared for the people of Israel. They were always on his heart. And so he's also said he is Messiah. Right? That's Ezekiel 34. When he's speaking of the shepherd and all of that, Ezekiel 34 is a prophecy of this right here that he's speaking of, being the good shepherd. So, shepherd risks their life for the sheep, and they're held accountable. Now, let's walk through this text now, and we'll see what we can find in the minutes that we have left. He says, I am the shepherd, the good one. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Now, they would have heard a different word than you and I would hear when we read that. there's three different kind of words for life. Really, there's two. Jesus created this in a sense for that. There's the bios, right, which we get biology from. It's a physical life. There is also zoe, which is kind of a deeper. It's the us that's beneath the skin. It's who we are. It's the unseen aspect of us. And then here Jesus says the good shepherd lays down his suke, right, his soul. That encompasses the deepest part of us, right? It's like Jesus said, I'm giving my whole life, not just my physical life. Hey, I didn't have this body before I'm God. I won't have this body necessarily after. I'm just right here. I've got it. But he said, I'm not just laying my body down. I'm just not laying this internal aspect of me. I'm laying everything down. Excuse me. He says, he who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who is not the owner of the sheep. What he's saying is, hey, God owns us all. I and him are one. We're working in unity. And he says this, who is not the owner of the sheep sees the wolf coming, and they leave the sheep and they flee. What's he saying to them? Listen, I will always be with you. Ain't nothing going to run me off. All that the Father's given me, I will keep. All the Father's given me comes to me, and I'm taking them to a good place. That's why he looked at the Pharisees and says, you're dead in your sins. Where I'm going, you can't come. You're not my sheep. You're not going to the green pasture. You're not going where I'm going. Destruction and perdition, that's where you are. And so he's making this plain here, setting the stage. When they see the false shepherds see the wolf and they run because they don't love and care about you. I'm not running. I will give my life for you. And so the flock scatters. He flees because he's a hired hand and doesn't care about the sheep. You Pharisees, you don't care about the sheep. You care about what they give you. I am the good shepherd, and I know my own, and my own know me. Isn't that good? Just to know that he's got a pet name for us. The scripture says that we don't know. Only he knows. But when he calls us, we hear. We hear the voice of God. He speaks to us gently or however he does it, but he speaks to us. And we know him. Just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, just as though we are intertwined like that, and he said, that's how we know each other here. There's that same fellowship. John will use that word in 1 John, right? We want you to know what we have so you and me and God can all be in fellowship together. That's this intertwangled kind of a thing. And he says, just as me and the Father are intertwined, so me and my sheep are intertwined. Man, that's good. Just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I'm going to do what they want. I'm going to take all of your troubles and I'm going to put them on me. This is what he's saying. Then he says this, and I have other sheep that are not of this fold, and I'm going to bring them in also. And they will listen to my voice, and they will become one flock with one shepherd. I'm going to mix the Jews and the Gentiles all together, and we're all going to be one flock. And this is good. This is what Paul speaks about in all of his epistles, the coming together of Jew and Gentile. And then he says this, no one has taken it away from me. No one's taking my life. You Jews want to stone me? You think you can't. I lay it down on my own. In my time, in my choosing, I'll lay it down. I have authority to lay it down. I have authority to remove myself from this body, and I have authority to take it back. This commandment I received from my Father. There's powerful truth there. He just gave them the resurrection, and they can't even see it. Now, it says this in verse 19. Dissension occurred again among the Jews because of these words. Now, the Jews, he means the leaders. Dissension occurred again among the Jews because of these words. Many of them were saying, God's insane, man. He's got a demon. What is all this talk about shepherds? Because they're blind. They can't understand. Why do you listen to him? So they're looking at the people going, why do y'all even listen to this guy? He's got demons. He's insane. But some of them are saying, And others were saying, could mean others of the Pharisees or others of just the crowd. If it's others of the Pharisees, it would be people like Nicodemus and maybe a few of the others. But he says this, these aren't the words of a demon-possessed man. A demon cannot open the eyes of the blind, can he? That's the end of the conversation for today. Man, Lord bless you guys. I hope you're enjoying this study. I realize it's not like this, outline and teaching thing, but man, it's rich with just how Jesus is just unfolding for us what life looks like. Lord bless you guys. Can't wait to share more with you in the morning. Have a great one.